Good morning, traders. Gates W. Adams here. I am your host, and we've got a pretty exciting show for you today, so stick around. You are not going to want to miss this one. Now, to set this up just a little bit, first and foremost, I want to share a big milestone. Apex Trader Funding has now paid out over $100 million to traders. We all knew this was coming. Last week we were at 80 million, so it was just a matter of moments before we would see that, and it is now official. Now let's take this into context. 1% of that would be pretty exciting, wouldn't it? Now, when I think about today's guest, I think about some conversations that my wife and I have had about winning the lottery. Like, if we won the lottery, what is one of the biggest things that we would do? Well, the first thing that we would do is not tell anybody. Now, the difference between winning the lottery and making a significant payout as a trader is trading proceeds as a funded paid trader through Apex Trader Funding is a repeatable process. And today's guest has, in fact, earned 1%, about 1% of that total Apex payout, which means that he has been paid out over $1 million by Apex Trader Funding. That is a seven-figure payout. This is not the first guest we've had. I do think it warrants saying that results not typical, but they are possible and they are repeatable. And that is the whole point of doing things like this show. So as we move into today's show, I will tell you, we will not be seeing my guest face today for privacy reasons, of course, but the information that he has to share with us was just too good to pass up. And so I wanted to make sure that we still had an opportunity to talk to him, take a look at some charts and some trading, and get some insight from him. Because ultimately, when we think about the targets as funded traders, as, hey, I want to get to 10,000 a month, I want to get to 25,000 a month. We all have these milestones. That $1 million mark is one of those big milestones that we're all searching for. So with that in mind, let's get a moment and let's prepare to hear from LiveMicTrader and share how he made $1 million trading with Apex on today's.
Welcome to the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting funded, paid, and bringing home the bacon. Are you ready? Because the Trader Bacon Show starts right now.
Hey, good morning, LiveMicTrader. How are we doing today?
Good morning. Good morning. Great to be here. Thank you, Gates, for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you. It's an honor and obviously a privilege to get a chance to talk to you about some of the things that you've been able to accomplish as a trader inside and outside of the world of Apex Trader Funding, and really learn what it took for you to get to this major milestone in your trading. So thanks for sharing some time with us this morning.
Absolutely.
So what I like to do as we kind of get started is just get a little bit of a background from our guests on, really what the journey has been like for you. And before we get into that, before I forget, because I'm notorious, for those of you watching, please make sure that you fill out the form. You can see the link right there in the chat. We are going to be giving away some Apex Trader Funding evaluations, potentially $1 million evaluation, right? So make sure you get that taken care of. We will be announcing those winners by the end of the show. Now that's been taken care of. Let's talk a little bit about your background and let's talk a little bit about your journey. How long have you actually been trading at this point?
Sure. Yeah, I started trading in 2006 in my college dorm room. So it's been a long time coming. Those were the days when you would pay $7 a trade, so it'd be a $14 way either way, right? And I was trading stocks. I majored in finance, so I obviously had a natural interest in investments and just investing in general. But
Sure.
One thing led to another, and you realize that day trading is this exciting field where you can have incredible P&L fluctuations. And so 2006 was when I started. And I still remember to this day, it's probably not the greatest thing I did as a student, but I would be trading sometimes in my classes, and so it's been a long time coming. And it was right after I graduated in 2008. This is, I think, around September, when I decided I want to move my money, whatever money I had, to a boutique day trading firm. They had these firms where you could get 45 cents a trade, something
Wow.
like that, And so I thought, okay, this is going to be my big break. This is the edge I need, I thought. And so I remember, I think I had started on a Thursday, and it was the Monday that I came in after. This was my second or third day of trading, was the Lehman Brothers crisis. You guys all remember that. Maybe some of you guys don't. But it was the day that Lehman Brothers over the weekend started trading at $2, right? And so everyone was going nuts. And I still remember that I didn't know much about trading at that time, of course, in hindsight. And I was a buyer of Lehman Brothers, and that didn't end too well.
No, I wouldn't
Yeah.
imagine so.
And so long story short, I was trading for a few months. I think many people know the statistics for trading don't usually last more than 3 or 4 months, and I had a very hard time. I had just gotten married at that time as well, and we had a kid. We were expecting a kid as well, and I just needed some stable income. And so, by God's grace, I had an opportunity to build a few businesses that gave me the stability I needed, and I had to take a break from trading. Right. But the fascination with trading and pursuing alpha and achieving positive expectancy, it never left me, right? I mean, I had majored in finance, so it's something that I was studying even at the time. And so I was always kind of thinking about the markets, thinking about what is the best way to trade, right? And so using some of the proceeds from my business, I still dabbled in a few things. I still traded Forex for a few years, smaller account. I tried investing in the stock market as well. And, I didn't really see too much success, but I did see over a very long span of time some consistencies, right? I always noticed that my biggest losses were always my biggest holds, right? I would be holding on to these losses for sometimes days, right? And my greens, though, I would take them real quick. I mean, because as soon as you see that $100 or $200, it'd be such a quick thing, right? And my wife, she's always been very supportive of me, always been very loving, always trusted me, even from day one. She stuck with me all the way. And she lovingly joked one day, have you ever considered, hun, you should just reverse everything that you do? Because this has been a long time, and I mean, I don't know. It's been a very long trajectory, negative trajectory, right? And I suppose that was a kind of a light bulb moment. I kind of wanted to reverse engineer. Why is it that I keep losing, whether I'm in stocks or in Forex or whatever asset class that I'm in, right? And I have seemingly a measurable success in other realms, but why not in day trading? And I think, the natural progression, evolution of this is obviously that you realize that this is a numbers game, right? This is a matter of risk, reward, and win rate. The only 3 metrics that matter, and what I was doing, of course, was I was really intent on achieving a very high win rate, trying to 98% of the time. And my reward would be rather small, right? Because I wanted to hit that reward really quick. I want to take that profit. I didn't let my profits roll. I didn't let my greens ride. But of course, my risk was catastrophically high, right? And the 1% of the time that I would lose, it'd be huge, and it would wipe out all those gains. And I now understand this, but it was really just long tail risk, right? You have this sort of phenomenological kind of experience that you're succeeding, like things are going well because every day I keep posting small little gains, but little do I know, there is in my system this kind of coming day, right, when it all comes crashing down, because cooked into my very system is this embedded risk, this kind of systemic problem, right, that is just waiting to explode on me, right? And so I think that was really kind of thinking through that. It took me many years to get to that point, and even then, it took me a few years even after that to kind of get past my own demons, right? Get past my own problems, personal problems, psychological problems, fearing this green going back to break even, right? Or cutting my reds really quickly. And so, truth be told, I actually turned the corner. I became profitable, not very profitable, but profitable just right before COVID.
Okay.
And, it was right around that time that I think was a very difficult time for a lot of people. My business took a hit as well, and I was leaning more and more on my trading. And I realized, as awesome as it is to be a profitable trader, when you're leaning on these trading skills to pay the bills, pay expenses, pay the mortgage, it can be very challenging. You
Right.
never really have a chance to grow that capital. It became really clear to me to have extremely positive expectancy. You're going to have incredible alpha, or you need more capital, you need more leverage. And there was this constant pressure to have to perform. And it's that makes it trading even more difficult, right? Because in order to trade well, you have to think differently, right? You have to think about losses and wins in a different way, right? And how am I supposed to hold on to these winners when I have to pay my bills, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And it was sometimes hard to take the loss because you kind of think, oh, whoa, I just lost my whole month's rent maybe in one trade, and do I have to take this loss? And of course, the statistically superior answer is that, yeah, you need to take that loss quickly, right? And when you see that green, you have to let it roll. And so it was a very difficult experience. And while I was still profitable, it was, I always wanted a solution where, I want to have a setup. I want to be a part of some sort of an experience or a company that might maybe fund me, that might help me along the way. And that was right around the time when I discovered futures trading and Apex, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was an incredible game changer for me, right? This idea that I can use Apex funding, I can get funding from a company, I could prove to them that I am a profitable trader, and through their funding now, be able to trade the strategies that I've learned over the years to, not just pay my bills now, but get one of the biggest payouts of my life, right? And so,
right.
Apex has been an incredibly instrumental part of that journey. It came in at the end, but no regrets. It's a wonderful thing that they've done for me, and I hope it could be a wonderful inspiration for many people trading at Apex who are also looking to get funded and to pay their bills and more.
Sure. Now I want to tag on to something here. You mentioned, and Steve latched on to, risk reward and win rate. And a lot of people like to quote win rate because it can sound fantastic, but you can have, as you mentioned, a very, very high win rate. But if your risk reward ratio is out of whack, it can significantly impact the way that not only that the results end up being, but also the mindset. And I'll even share one of my experiences not that long ago. The way that I had been trading at the time, my risk and reward ratio was such that if I had a loser, it would take 2.5 trades to get back in the green. And after a couple of days in a row of taking a couple of losing days rather, the way that I traded and the way that my rules were set up, it would take over a week for me to get out of that hole. Psychologically speaking, that had a very significant impact on the way that I was trading. And ultimately, I ended up blowing my accounts because I did things that I would never do under normal circumstances.
Sure.
So having those three pieces in line obviously makes a huge impact on, again, not just the results, but the psychology. So with that in mind, would you be open to sharing with us some of the things that you do and some of the things that you look for when you're looking to make a trade?
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to get into at least a little bit of the charts. There's obviously a lot to it, but just some of the basic things that I look for. It's surprisingly simple. I think a lot of people, when I share with them, what I see on the charts, they'll kind of wonder, that's it? You made $1 million trading that simple strategy, right? And I think it's shocking to people, but my strategy is very simple. I simply look for a confluence of various levels. So you can see these horizontal lines here, colored in different colors. These are all what I would consider to be significant levels, right? For example, you have the yellow line, which is previous open, right? Or you have the red line, which is a previous low. And these are pivots that are weekly pivots, monthly pivots, quarterly pivots, even yearly pivots, right? And what I'm looking for really is a lot of pivots or a lot of key levels that are all aligned in one spot, so that you have a confluence of various reasons why you might want to look for a short or for a long. And I really do see them as a kind of support and resistance. And then I have this white line here, which is just the 9 EMA on the 1 minute. And, surprisingly, it's a surprisingly simple way I use it. If it's above the line, I'm looking generally for a short. And if it's below the line, I'm looking for a long. Right. And I'm kind of finding a confluence of all three. And then, of course, you add on to that, I have a lot of, you might call them counselors or fellow traders that I trade with and who have different disciplines. I'm, as you can tell, I'm not an ICT trader, but a lot of the traders I trade with are ICT. Other people, maybe they're more flow. They do order flow, and there's different kinds of traders that I like to kind of cross ideas with. And so finding confluence between some of the things I'm seeing and some of the things that they are seeing has been an incredible help as well, right? We're able to see, okay, it looks like a lot of traders are looking at the same things. Maybe there's even disagreements, which allows me to assess otherwise. And then from there, really, I'm trying to, I think this is maybe the most unhuman part, but you're trying to find areas where, let's say, for example, during the London session yesterday, you had this kind of an incredible squeeze up, and you have this moment where it breaks below the 9 EMA. And so to me, if I were to enter, having and had done so in kind of this infinite fashion right into these pivots, and I did take this trade yesterday, but you take a trade and you see that there's a kind of a very small risk, and you kind of think, is it possible for this to retrace lower, and to do so with maybe a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio? Is it likely that this could happen maybe more than 25% or 33% of the time, right? And so you're always assessing, I think there is a greater than 33% chance, right, that this can retrace all the way, and so this is what a trader's constantly doing, right? You're thinking about the math behind, all right, if I were to go in, where would my stop be, and where would I target, and is it possible for the chart to even reach that far, right? And so even now, if I were to be trading, I'm in a trade currently. I had shorted way up there, and something that I try to do is I keep my risk very, 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 very shallow, right? I put my stop very close. I'll take my loss very quickly. It's as simple as that, right? But I think a lot of what a lot of people get befuddled by is that, I can be very variable, right? Sometimes I'll have kind of a theory as to what's happening in the price action. So, I have like a saying, I need to be like water, as Bruce Lee said, right? I have to sort of like evolve the way I approach it. But one thing that is always constant is that I'm always putting in my risk and then assessing, okay, if my risk is, say, $20 or $100 or $300, okay, if it's $300, I need to make at least $600. Is it possible for me to make $600? Can the chart go that far? And at what win rate, right? At what statistical, what is the statistics? What behind it, right? What is the chance that it can do that? And I'm sort of assessing that frequently. I think something also that I do that maybe kind of tilts things slightly in my favor is, as things go my way, I would be in the habit of adding to my winners and then taking my profit on those winners quickly as well. So I'm sort of scalping in between. So a lot of people will ask me, well, if that's all you did, how did you get to $1 million? Certainly there were some days where you just have such a strong read that you're scaling in and out on multiple accounts, right? And I think that's an incredible feature of Apex. They allow you to not get one account, but 20 accounts. Sure. In fact, it's the only platform that I know of, or funding company that I know of that allows you to get 20. And so it allows you incredible flexibility, right? You can kind of assess and say, this is a slightly riskier trade. Maybe I'll use a different account, right? Maybe my main account I can use for the normal de facto trade that I normally employ. But, I do want to add to my winner now. And perhaps I can use this other account that, it's a little bit riskier, but maybe this account is not as precious. Let's say it's kind of like it's still developing. Whereas I have another account that's maybe my core account that's been developed, right? And that's where I'll take my A+ setups, as it were, right? And then maybe if it's like a C setup or a B setup, but slightly bigger reward, okay, that's where I'll put my ad, and maybe I'll take that as a quick scalp, but hold on to my original core position. So, that's sort of a funny thing that people say is, hey, I realize, LMT, your charting is is not that developed, you know, and I would agree. You know, I think my charting is maybe far less developed than some of these other guys that I trade with. And I think I'm okay with that. But I think where I think it has really allowed me to thrive is that my risk management, the risk management behind those trades is a constant, right? I'll never deviate from that. And, you know, I think that'd be my encouragement for all the traders listening today, right? That if there's one thing that you really want to get down, you want to have really strong defense. You know, if I can make an analogy to a basketball team, right? You have a defensive kind of a team that knows how to play defense, who can get to the championships. And then you have a team that has incredible offense, but they have no defense. And really the name of the game in trading is to have both, right? You want to have a completely solid defense. And then from there, yeah, you can keep growing and keep getting education, keep learning from other traders, and building up that offensive ability and that skill, but all in the context of risk management, right?
Right. So, you know, and that's, you know, what I love all of that, because obviously you've handled those three key areas that we talked about before. But I love the conversation that's happening in the chat right now, and it mirrors something that I've said multiple times on this show. Is that someone can learn the mechanics of a trading strategy within literally, you know, a couple of weeks, maybe, depending obviously on the strategy and how complicated it is. But what takes longer, months and even years, is that mindset and that emotional control. What is it that has brought you over time enough emotional control to actually start operating in the types of numbers that we're talking about that would basically blow somebody's mind in most cases, and yet you have continued to thrive at these levels?
Yeah, it's surprising. You know, I think there's always a very surprising answer when people ask, you know, what do you do, right? And I think the key is to keep things very measurable and small at first. You know, I never really got into I never really traded thinking, hey, you know what, I'm going to hit 1 million this year, right? I think it's always, you start at the very beginning of a PA, let's say. You start slow. You think to yourself, okay, I'm gonna try to risk no more than $200 today, and I'm gonna try to hit 400. And you know, as you hit 400 and you do that on a frequent basis, it's almost like those days were a blur. You know, I don't really remember every little detail, but I just know that on multiple occasions I hit my target, and on a few occasions I hit my max loss for that day, right? And I knew that my numbers were all intact. And before I knew it, I had this huge kind of buffer that I had to work with. And I think a lot of people underestimate just the power of exponential growth, right? The idea that, you know, as you start, you have to start slow, kind of build that snowball. But as it keeps going and you build up that buffer, there's a lot more flexibility. There's a lot more ability to kind of take more measured risks, right? And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think that just the willingness, I think a big part of psychology is just the first of all, the belief in the numbers of your system, right? And recognizing that sometimes the statistics behind your system, well, I mean, not sometimes, every time, it comes in slow, right? You know, you often look at a system and you see hundreds of points or 300 point data points, and you think, oh, this is a really good system, but hey, you have to take that every day, one day at a time, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up psychologically. Like, hey, man, I thought the system's going to work, but I see a red on the screen. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just one data point, right? You got 299 more to go. You got to keep sticking to that positive expectancy system and let that positive expectancy kick in, right? And especially if you have a system that has a maybe slightly lower win rate, but you know it's a incredibly profoundly profitable system, you have to accept really that, you know, even with a 50% win rate, I think there's some sort of statistic out there that the chance that in the next 100 trades you'll have 3 losers in a row is something like 100% almost. It's like, I think it's like 94% chance that that's going to happen, right? So I mean, you think about the human experience behind that, right? Like, you've studied so much on this system, you spent so many weekends looking through your charts, and I've now experienced 3 or 4 losses in a row. Is this system really going to work? And yeah, I think for most people, yeah, you have a really great system, and you just have to stick to it. And you have to control yourself when you're losing. And recognize that, when you go on tilt and you're kind of doing insane things, you're definitely deviating from the statistical reality of what you want to achieve, right? And I think,
phenomenal point.
yeah, and I think something that I've done personally is I know when I'm on tilt. I'm losing control, and I have these sort of predetermined plans that I pursue whenever I feel very emotional, right? So maybe if I've taken a daily loss on the PA, I really didn't want that. I didn't expect that. The chart did something crazy. I was not expecting that to happen that day. My de facto move is, look, I'm getting emotional. I'm going to go buy more evals and I'm going to go and pass more of them. So I have more PAs to work with perhaps in the future. Right. And so I think that's been smart for me, because whenever I'm emotional, that's when I'm not making the best decisions. And I might as well then consign those negative emotions and those bad decisions into a realm that's least damaging to me, which of course is to buy evals and to make those trades there. Right.
Right. Right.
And then when I'm in a groove, that's when I kind of, that's when I push the pedal, kind of accelerate and try to make a lot of progress on my PAs. Right. So I think there's really kind of the emotional control has less to do with kind of just in a blanket way saying, hey, I got to control myself, but it's more in a predetermined manner, planning beforehand. Hey, I'm going to get emotional. I'm human. Right? And I'm going to now make a few steps, a few plans and protocols I'm going to follow whenever I get to those emotional moments.
Right.
And I think that's been a great help to me and to a lot of the traders I work with.
That's unbelievable. Now we are almost out of time, so I have to ask these two questions back to back real quick, because I know everybody wants to know these answers, and most people in good company wouldn't ask them. But I've got you on the show, so I'm going to ask you. You got $1 million payout from Apex Trader Funding. So question number one is, how long did it take you to earn that $1 million? And number two, what did your biggest day look like?
Okay. Yeah. Well, those are the biggest day. Well, maybe I'll start with the biggest day. Obviously, the biggest day doesn't happen every day. It's not every day that you have kind of you look at the daily, you look at the longer time frames, and you think, hey, I really think this thing can run. I really think so. And I got really good positioning in terms of my risk reward. And there's moments where you think, I'm not going to take my reward. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to let this go all the way. And so I think my biggest day may have been maybe $200,000.
Wow.
Yeah. It was on all my accounts. I had some of the best positioning. I had a lot of contracts, and I knew that if this reverted all the way, I'd probably feel pretty miserable, but I'd take no more than a break even. Right.
Right.
But if this goes all the way, like I think, I can have one of the biggest wins. Right. And yeah, so 200,000 was one of my biggest ones. Obviously that helped on the trajectory to $1 million.
Sure.
And sorry, what was your first question?
How long did it take you to earn that $1 million trading?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it was a culmination, obviously, since 2006, but if you're asking, like, when did you get started with Apex? I think it took me about 6 months to get to that point, right? So for the first 2 months, I just needed to kind of figure out how it works, trailing drawdown, I have to learn ways to kind of get around that and figure out how to kind of orient my trading through that. But if you want to get all my profitable accounts, I think it took me about 4 months, right? So that's from 0 to $1 million, right? So that's funny. What's funny is that the first 2.5 months, really, no one would have expected I'd become $1 million trader, right?
Right.
It's that idea of exponential growth, where you start out very steady, and then it's only in just a few days that you're making, six figure trades, right? And and it all kind of adds up at the end. So, I hope that kind of gives people again inspiration and kind of a commitment to thinking about things statistically, and being okay with starting small. No one's going to make $1 million in one trade, right? But I think once you get things rolling and the statistical reality of your trading system kind of kicks in, I think that's when a lot of people get the rewards of that.
That's unbelievable. Well, real quick, we got to do a little bit of business here. So, Super Trader Sam, Marquis, I'm gonna butcher this, but Marquisel and Onya, I know who that is. Former guest on the show, if I'm not mistaken. So, congratulations, you guys picked up an evaluation. And for you, LiveMicTrader, of course, people can find you on Twitter. Is it at LiveMicTrader1, if I'm not mistaken?
That's right. Yep, there's a 1 at the end. Yep, and you can find me on Twitter. Love to get to know some of y'all.
All right, we'll reach out. And my understanding is you actually have an opportunity where you actually work with some traders and help them improve their game. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I work with Kingline Capital Group. So there's a lot of phenomenal traders working alongside me, and we'd come alongside you to help you to develop a positive expectancy system.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, go check him out, folks. Thank you for spending some time with us today. Ran a little long. My apologies on that, but we will be back next week with another fantastic show. LiveMicTrader, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. Love the information. If you want more of that, go check him out on Twitter, and we'll chat with you guys next week.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting funded.